testimony of Brother Aravindaksha Menon as being delivered at Divine Retreat Center, Chalakudi, Kerala, India. My dear brothers and sisters in Jesus Christ, my name is Aravindaksha Menon. As the very name suggests, I am hailing from a very orthodox semi-Brahmin Hindu family. As my family was of a Brahmin culture, I was bound to study the Hindu scriptures, Ramayana, Mahabharata and Bhagavad Gita from very early childhood. I was brought up in my family in a most religious way, studying all these scriptures, chanting hymns and attending the puja ceremonies in the temple every day. At the age of 18, after completing my normal education, I entered into central government service in an office under the Ministry of Commerce. Since then, for a period of over 20 years, I led a very happy and cheerful life. Having the effect of this spiritual training in abundance in my mind, I could always love others, I could always think of for others, I could always work for others, and I could lead a life without any selfish motives. Thus, everybody around me, my colleagues, became my friends. Through them, I could become the leader of the service organization of the establishment in which I was working. Through this politically motivated organization, I could come into contact with Indian Communist Party. Within no time, I became a staunch worker of the Communist Party. I could become a leader of the Communist Party in my locality. Through this political work, being loved and respected by my natives. Through this organizational work, being loved and respected by my colleagues and friends, I could lead a very happy and cheerful life for over 20 years. After this very happy period of 20 years, one day, most unexpectedly, I lost my job. Citing ever so many political reasons, my relationship with the Communist Party, my work for the Communist Party, an agitation, a big strike that occurred in my office, the leadership given by me to this strike, citing ever so many political reasons, my authorities dismissed me from the service. Always being engaged in this political and organizational work, financially I was not at all sound ever in my life. I need not explain that what will happen to such a family which is already financially unsound when its income itself is unexpectedly stopped. Within a few days, the total life of myself and my family was put into so much of financial hardships. When financial hardships come to us, we begin to think about God. Because my family is of such great spiritual background. My family owns 3 temples, 3 big temples in the family compound itself. The gods incarnated in these temples are called Bharadevadas. I went to the temples of these Bharadevadas and began to pray with all my heart. Giving all sort of offerings to these temples, I spent days, weeks and months in the temples in fasting and prayers. But nothing happened to my life. Nothing changed my life. Nothing lessened my hardships in my life. Normally, naturally, when God's blessings are denied to us, we the Hindus used to go to an astrologer and consult him to find out what is the trouble with our lives. I also went to a very famous astrologer in our state. 4 times I went to him. All the 4 times he found out different reasons for my hardships. Cases of a god, cases of goddesses, cases of birth stars and so on. All the 4 times he suggested very expensive avoidances or penances. I did not have any money with me. I borrowed every money that I could get and attended all these avoidances most promptly. Still nothing happened to my life. Nothing lessened the distress in my life. I lost my faith in God. I became an atheist. I was so convinced there is no such God. God is only a myth created by man for the welfare of the priests, astrologers and temples. As you know, there are very eminent atheists in our state, Kerala state. They have got their own association, their own movement, the Rationalist Association of India. I happened to meet some of the leaders of this association at that time. After hearing my story, they told me, "You are a man of experience. Nothing is to be taught to you. It is your social duty to go around and tell others that there is no God." Most happily, I took up this assignment, and for the next 3 years, I went around the state of Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh. I went to almost all cities of India and preached, "There is no God. God is only a myth created by man for the exploitation of man by man." Even though I was preaching against God for all these 3 years, this period of 3 years turned out to be a blessing in disguise as far as I am concerned, because I could read a lot of books during this period. I could come into contact with so many intellectual giants, big writers during this period. And one of this friendship cultivated by me on those days while I was preaching against God changed my life totally. One day, in a South Indian city, I was giving a lecture on atheism. After hearing my preaching, a man came to meet me. He was a Hindu Brahmin by birth, born to a very poor family. With his own efforts, he studied and became an advocate. Then he became a judge of the High Court. Finally, he became the Chief Justice and then retired. He was a great scholar in English and Sanskrit. Such a great man he was. After attending to my talk, he came to me and told me, "My dear son, you have gone wrong twice. Once, when your life was put into so much hardships, thinking that you are turning to God, you did not turn to the real God, but you did turn to the idols and temples. It was wrong." I was rather astonished because these comments came from a Brahmin. He is from such a race which make livelihood out of this worship of the idols in the temple, and he tells me, when I went to the temples and worshipped the idols, it was a mistake. And secondly, when you did not get benefited out of your worship of the idols in the temples, you tend to become an atheist. That's also wrong. You are a born Hindu, and you should be proud of being a Hindu. To be proud of being Hindu, you have to go through the scriptures of Hinduism. Very proudly I told him, I not only gone through the scriptures, I have studied them by heart. Ramayana, Mahabharata, Bhagavad Gita, I have studied by heart. Nothing is to be done in that respect now. Then he laughed at me. He called me a fool and told me, these books, Ramayana, Mahabharata and Bhagavad Gita, are not the religious scriptures. Those are only story books. Ramayana is the story of Sri Rama, the king of Ayodhya, a historical man. Mahabharata is a story of Sri Krishna, the prince of Madura, another historical figure. Bhagavad Gita is compiled of 18 chapters, is just selected from Mahabharata. These are not religious scriptures. The official religious books of Hinduism are the Vedas, the written 4 Vedas, the Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda and Atharva Veda. You have to go through the Vedas, then you will get light. You can find the truth. You can see the real God, and the real God will give you peace. He advised me. Out of his advice, I did not get any faith in God. But there may be some point in his advice. To know that point, I went to a library, got a copy of Rig Veda, the first and foremost one of the 4 Vedas, and began to read from the Veda. After reading through some passages, I got convinced of one thing. One thing he told me was correct. I started getting the light. The very first light I could get from Rig Veda, the religious books of Hinduism, was that to whomsoever gods I went in the days of my hardships, gave offerings and prayed to, are not gods. There are no such gods. There are no such gods. In the religious books of Hinduism, the Rig Veda, there is the mention about only one God. He is the creator of the universe. He is the creator of all mankind the world over. He is the Heavenly Father, the only God. This only God is omnipresent. He fills this universe. As the Lord Almighty is omnipresent and He fills this universe, nobody can see Him in a particular form. As the Lord Almighty is formless and bodiless, nobody can make an idol of God and worship an idol. It's worthless and it's useless. A fool who is worshipping an idol gains nothing but pain, and he never attains salvation. I was convinced. As there are 73 books in the Holy Bible, there are 10 books for the Rig Veda, 10 mandalams. From 1st to 9 mandalams, in several places, it is clearly said who is real God, who is man, and why should man worship God, and how should he worship Him. In the 10th mandalam, besides this Lord Almighty, there is mention about a man, the firstborn and only born son of God. His name is Prajapathy. Prajapathy, the son of God, comes to this world at the appropriate time. After coming to this world, he travels around advising mankind what is sin and what is not sin, what is to be done and what is not to be done, what is wrong and what is right. To those human beings who accept his advices and obey his orders, he offers prosperity and peace in this worldly life and salvation at the time of the venture to redeem mankind from sin. He gets sacrificed at the end of his specified period on earth. In verse 7, chapter 9 of the 10th book of Rig Veda, the sacrifice of Prajapathy, the son of God, is well explained. At the time of sacrifice, the son of God will be tightly tied to a wooden sacrificial post using iron nails by hand and the legs. He will bleed to death, and on the third day he will regain his life in a resurrection. Praise the Lord. I was totally confused. Who is Prajapathy? Who is the son of God? As per Hindu mythology, there are 10 incarnations of God. 10 times God come to this world. Malsya, Kurma, Varaha, Narasimhacha, Vamana, Rama, Ramacha, Krishna, Kalki. There are the 10 incarnations. First I thought this reference about Prajapathy, the son of God, will be about one among those incarnations. But it was not. Because of each and every incarnation has got its own attributes. None of these attributes suit those attributes of Prajapathy as given in the Rig Veda and as given in Sadapta Brahmana, a supplement of Yajurveda. Then I went to some scholars in my neighborhood and asked them, who is Prajapathy, who is son of God? One of them told me, yes, there is a concept of Prajapathy. Praja means man, Pati means savior. There will be a man coming from God, being the savior of mankind. He has not yet come. We are still expecting him. All this time, Jesus was in my mind. But I, being a staunch Hindu, I could not even think like that. But again, I am not only Hindu, I am an atheist. I am a rationalist. I asked him, can this reference be about Jesus Christ? That scholar asked me, what made you think like that? I told him the attributes. All the attributes of Prajapati, son of God, given in the Vedas suit those of Jesus in the Bible. That's why I had that doubt. Then he told me, no, it can't be, because it happened in some Western countries, in Jerusalem or so, not here. Again I told him, it need not be here. The mention is only here, man and the God. So it can be anywhere. Now the scholar scolded me, you fool, don't make such foolish argument with me. This is a religious matter, a godly affair. Get out. With all these confusions in my mind, I went to the noble Brahmin who advised me to go through the Vedas and asked him, who is Prajapati? Who is the son of God? Then he asked me, it is written in Malayalam. Why don't you understand? I told him, I could understand, but I have my own doubts. My dear brothers and sisters, even though a scholar, a born Brahmin, even though a scholar, a born Hindu, he told me, my dear son, there is nothing to be doubted. The only one sent by God, came to this world, tried to redeem mankind from sin, and God's sacrifice at the end is nobody else but Jesus Christ. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Then he asked me, now it's time you go through Bible, you will get further truth. I came by to my house. There is no Bible in my house. I borrowed a Bible from my nearby Christian house and began to read Bible. When I read some passages from the very first book of Genesis itself, stronger wonders than I could find Jesus in the Holy Scriptures of Hinduism began to appear before me in the Holy Bible. Almost all the verses I could read from Rig Veda appeared just same in the Holy Bible. The same verses or verses with the same meanings or verses being answer to the questions, doubt and prayers in the Vedas, Upanishads and even the Bhagavad Gita. All connected verses. I cannot go in detail about such verses now, but only give a few examples just for your conviction and faith. The very first book of Holy Bible is the book of Genesis. Genesis is the history of creation. It's said that Heavenly Father created this universe in 6 days. The first day, Genesis chapter 1 verses 3. The God said, let there be light, and there was light. In Genesis chapter 1 verses 16, God creates the sun, the moon and the stars, which were created on the 4th day only. Then which was the light which emanated from the God on the first day? Answer to the question we get from the verses of St. John chapter 1, 1 to 14. In the beginning was the Word was from the God, came to this world in the form of light. The Word that came to this world as light became flesh and made his dwelling among us, and that's our Lord Jesus Christ. Now verse number 1, chapter 121 of the 10th book of Rig Veda says, in the beginning God and his Supreme Spirit alone existed. From the Supreme Spirit of God proceeds Hiranyagarbha alias Prajapati, the firstborn of the God, is in the form of light. As soon as born, he became the savior of the world. Rig Veda, book 10, chapter 90, verses 2. This man, the firstborn of the God, is all that was, all that is, and all that has to be. And he comes to this world to give and compensate to everybody as per his deeds. Revelation chapter 1 verse 8 says, the Lord God who is, who was, and who is to come, the Almighty. Revelation chapter 22 verses 12. Behold, I am coming soon. I bring with I will to each according to his deeds. Rigveda, book 10, chapter 90, verses 7. This man, the firstborn of God, was tied to a wooden sacrificial post, and the gods and the kings, along with the seers, performed the sacrifice. All the four Gospels say Jesus was crucified on a wooden cross by the rulers Herod and Pilate and the seers Annas and Caiaphas. Yajurveda and Rigveda says, this sacrifice is the only way for the redemption and liberation of mankind. Those who meditate and attain this man, believe in heart and chant with lips, get liberated in this world itself, and there is no other way for salvation too. Romans chapter 10 verses 9. If you confess with your lips that Jesus is the Lord and believe in heart that God has raised him from the dead, you will be saved. When I could come across all these verses, I got confused once again. I went to the Brahmin Guru again and told him it is wonderful. Again he told me there is nothing to be wonderstruck. Every ancient scriptures was one and the same. Hindu, Christian and Islam were all categorized later. All man-made. The word of God was one because God is only one. He asked me, do you believe that God is only one? I told him, yes, I do believe God is only one. Again he asked me, if God is only one, how can be the Son of God be several? It is not. It is also one. I came back to my house. That day became an unforgettable day in my life. 27th June 1992. All the daytime I was restless. There was a strong fight going in my mind. The fight between the culture I was born and brought up in and the truth I have found out now from the ancient scriptures on the very same culture. I became totally restless. In the night on my bed, I thought about Jesus Christ. Of course, I knew him before. There was a picture of Jesus Christ in my mind too. Jesus, the son of Joseph and Maria, born in Bethlehem, brought up in Nazareth, studied the scriptures of Jewish religion till the age of 29 and half, who tried to hold a riot against the king, and the priest, with the help of poor fishermen caught by the soldiers of the king, faced the trial and killed on the cross. This was the communist line of thinking about him. But in that night, for the first time in my life, I thought about Jesus in a very different way. Jesus, Son of God, who got sacrificed for the sins of the world. The rest was wonderful. There were certain hymns in the Rigveda, the meanings of which I could not understand in spite of repeated readings. But when I could ascribe Jesus as the sacrificial victim and the crucifixion as the sacrifice, the meanings of those verses came to me so clearly. Then I could understand what my Guru told me was correct. Jesus is the only Son of God. I sat upon my bed. For the first time in my life, I, a staunch Hindu, I prayed to Jesus Christ. I don't know how to pray. I don't know the narrations of prayers as given in the Bible. Oh, our Father, thou art in heaven. I don't know any of such prayers. I just prayed, oh Jesus, come to me. I am in distress. Come to me. Save me. When I prayed to Jesus, of course, I don't hesitate to confess before you know. I kept my prayers to myself. So secretly and silently I prayed, so that no one should hear, especially my wife, who is lying beside me, sleeping, should not hear. It is rather shameful for me to pray to Jesus Christ, but one thing is there. I have come to the faith to the Jesus Christ studying the Hindu scriptures, not inspired by Bible, not inspired by any Christian priest or friend. So what if my wife knows? She should know. But I could not think so at that time, because the reason was not that my wife also belongs to Hindu family. No, there was not the reason. On the day of our marriage, my wife had made a peculiar request to me. She also belongs to a Hindu family like mine, but all her neighbors were Christians, very orthodox Roman Catholics. In each and every family there is one priest and 2 or 3 nuns. So many of classmates and friends are now studying for priesthood or to become sisters. Due to her close acquaintance with these families, from early childhood she believes in Jesus Christ. Every day she prays to Jesus. Every Sunday she goes to church and she attends the Mass. Being a staunch Hindu, should not object her practices. That was her request to me. I told her, I am a communist, an atheist. I don't have such faith. I don't go either to church or to temple. But in my practice I never object or question the faith of others. So you can have your faith, I don't mind. She continued to be in that faith. She brought up our children also in the very same faith. She always was telling me also to have faith in Lord Jesus. But I didn't care. When I lost job and when my family was put in so much of distress, then again my wife told me, believe in Jesus Christ, our family will be saved. I did not pay any attention to her words. Instead, I went to the temples and worshipped the idols. When I came back from the idols most disappointed, then again my wife told me, believe in Jesus Christ, our family will be saved. Again I didn't care. I went to become an atheist and I began to preach against God. Now on my own, studying the authoritative Hindu scriptures, I myself have come to the faith of Jesus Christ. What my wife was telling me for the last 18 years has become true. Yes, but how can I admit it before her? Because I am husband and she is wife. So I kept my prayers to Jesus to myself and secretly prayed to him. After praying for some time, I retired to sleep. When I lay down to sleep, my wife, who was supposedly to be sleeping beside me, stood up. She was not sleeping, she was watching me silently. She stood up and she went to nearby room. There she had kept a small wooden cross for her prayers. She lit the candles, knelt down on the floor, and tears running down her eyes, she began to praise Jesus Christ. I got the meaning of that praise immediately. For the last 18 years, this poor woman was praying for me, and at the fulfillment of her prayers, she is praising the Lord now. I need not go to any astrologer to find out. I could not lie down anymore. I went to my wife, knelt down beside her, and joining hands, we began to pray to Jesus. That happened to be first family prayer in my house. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord.